Think about a small business owner, maybe in Accra, watching her shipping costs suddenly shoot up. Or maybe a farmer somewhere in Kenya, just grappling with these sky-high fuel prices for his tractor. These things, they aren't just distant headlines, are they? They're the real tangible effects, the ripples from a conflict miles and miles away. And they're reshaping life across a whole continent. So, welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through all that noise and, well, give you the essential insights you need to feel well informed. Today, we're plunging into something critical. It's this escalating conflict in the Middle East, and its impacts often unexpected, but really significant across Africa. We've really gone deep into the latest analysis on this, our mission, to pull out the most important bits of knowledge and, connect the dots for you. But here's where it gets really interesting. The question our deep dive kind of zeroed in on: how does a conflict thousands of miles away fundamentally change global trade, local economies, even political alignments across Africa?
It's fascinating because as of right now, June 2025, we're seeing some, well, truly historic developments play out. You've got Iran launching these major missile attacks on Israel. We're talking over 200 people wounded. The country's on high alert. Flights canceled, schools shut, sirens. And in response, Israel has hit back hard. Heavy military strikes, and specifically targeting Iranian nuclear and infrastructure.
And then you have the U.S. President, Donald Trump, sort of looming over it all. He's considering intervention, but there's definite hesitation. He doesn't want, quote, another Libya. We're really at a point where, one wrong move could tip this into a full-blown regional war. So the big question is, what does this actually mean for you, whether you're living in Africa or maybe just trying to make sense of this global chessboard?
It's an absolute critical question, yeah. And those ripples you mentioned, they're spreading far and wide already. Let's maybe start with something really basic, something that hits everyone's pockets: oil prices and inflation. We've seen with this conflict heating up, oil prices globally have jumped, over 10%? But what does a 10% jump like that actually feel like for someone, on the ground in Africa?
Well, it's definitely more than just an annoyance when you fill up your car. A 10% oil spike makes headlines, sure, but the real insight for Africa is how this thing creates a kind of multi-layered inflation bomb.
Right.
For countries that import oil, in Kenya, Ethiopia, Senegal, higher fuel prices mean transport costs go up directly. For everything, we're talking life-saving medicines, essential stuff for farming, and that translates pretty much straight away into more expensive food, higher electricity bills. It hits vulnerable households the hardest, disproportionately so. And even the big oil exporters like Nigeria or Angola, they might get a little short-term revenue boost, right? But their own citizens, they're still dealing with those exact same inflationary pressures. It doesn't just vanish.
Okay, so the cost of oil is squeezing wallets, definitely. And you mentioned trade routes earlier, maybe strangling businesses a bit. What's happening to the actual currency in those wallets? How's all this global uncertainty hitting African exchange rates?
It's a crucial next layer to unpack. When things get globally uncertain like this, investors tend to, run for cover. They flock to what they see as safe havens, often the US dollar. And this capital flight, it puts immense pressure on many African currencies. We're already seeing it. Currencies like the South African rand, they're losing value. And what that means on the ground is pretty stark. Imports get significantly more expensive. And for countries that have substantial foreign currency debt, paying that debt back becomes much, much harder. So it goes from, abstract financial markets straight to real everyday economic hardship for millions of people.
Wow. Okay, so beyond the pure economics, which is already pretty stark, the analysis we looked at also points to serious security implications, the human cost, the geopolitical tremors. How exactly are these global tensions spilling over into vulnerabilities that already exist within Africa?
That's a really important question, yeah. How do these existing vulnerabilities kind of intersect with global chaos? Africa, as we know, it's home to active terror groups and also numerous foreign military bases. We've seen, for instance, Iran's influence, its presence in Sudan, links to arms trafficking through North and East Africa. Now, groups like al-Shabaab or maybe IS-linked factions in the Sahel, they could very well use this escalating conflict as a powerful propaganda tool.
Exploit the instability.
Right, to further their own agendas. Exactly. And plus, you've got foreign powers, the U.S. included, with military bases across the continent. If the U.S. and Iran were to engage directly, Africa could easily become, the strategic chessboard again. The risk of proxy conflicts or expanded operations, it's very real.
Yeah, it sounds like African governments are really walking an incredibly precarious tightrope right now. I mean, do you side with the West? Do you try and stay neutral? Do you maybe align with this growing anti-imperialist bloc? What's the diplomatic challenge?
What's truly insightful, I think, from the analysis is how this conflict is basically forcing African nations to redefine what neutrality even means. It's not just about staying quiet diplomatically anymore. You have countries like South Africa already speaking out quite openly against certain actions, while others are, yes, choosing to stay silent, probably hoping to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. But, and the analysis wisely points this out, the traditional idea of neutrality isn't always a safe bet. When the world starts demanding you pick sides, silence can unfortunately look like complicity. So this situation is really pushing African nations to actively try and forge a third way, an independent path that puts continental stability first, above these external allegiances. It's a subtle shift, but quite profound.
Okay, so pulling all this together then, when we look at the core lesson for Africa from this whole complex situation, what really stands out? What's the most urgent need?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, I mean, the absolute critical importance of intra-African trade just becomes strikingly clear, doesn't it? This current situation really highlights precisely why Africa shouldn't be relying so heavily on foreign fuel or foreign food or these complex foreign shipping routes. And it also underscores that crucial need to diversify international partners, not just depending solely on the West or China or the Gulf states. Fundamentally, this whole thing just makes it abundantly clear. Foreign wars should never get to decide Africa's future.
That's a really powerful call to action. It feels like this global chaos, as challenging as it is, it's also a stark reminder of Africa's own strengths, and the strategic importance of self-reliance, with that clear emphasis on investing in peace, diplomacy, and unity within the continent itself.
Exactly. And this raises an important question for all of us, really. What does it actually mean to rise to the moment with wisdom and strategy when global chaos is shaking the world?
Yeah.
These proactive steps that were highlighted, fostering internal trade, cutting down external dependencies, prioritizing peace, they aren't just, reactive measures. They're really foundational principles for building lasting stability and prosperity.
So the question becomes, what does it truly look like to demand policies that actually protect us from these global ripples? That's definitely something for you to mull over as you navigate your own well-informed world.